Good morning. And let me begin by thanking all of you, not only for your individual service and sacrifice for our country, but for what the American Legion does every single day as an organization. And thank you, National Commander Jim Kautz, for inviting me to speak at his commander's call. I appreciate that very much. And Commander Jim, I want to congratulate you on your efforts with Operation Comfort Warrior. Providing our wounded warriors with gifts from their fellow veterans is extremely important and extremely meaningful. Whether it is assisting veterans with claims or job searches, the American Legion has played an enormously important role in our society in so many ways. In Vermont, I remember over the years attending various Boys State functions, and your efforts to educate kids, something we need very much in what American democracy is about, is just a huge contribution to our country, and we thank you for doing that. And we thank you for the other programs that you have, such as American Legion Baseball and many others, which gives young people constructive activities, allowing them to grow up in a healthy way. Both the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs and Congress as a whole value the insight the American Legion has to offer. To do government well, and I speak as a former mayor, you have to go to the people. You don't want a bureaucracy living in a separate world making important decisions. You know, and the other service organizations know, the people who deal with the VA every single day, you know what the problems are. Our job is to open the door for you to come in, engage in serious discussion with us, and make the changes that we need to make, and we look forward to working with you in that regard. I am delighted that I can spend one of my first official events as chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee with all of you. I can tell you that the committee has plans for an aggressive agenda this session. Many of you already know a gentleman who has done for decades extraordinary work for the American Legion, for my office, and he is now the staff director of the Senate Veterans Committee, Steve Robertson. So along with Steve, we've got a great staff. We want to interact with you and hear how we go forward together. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome to Washington a number of Vermonters who are active in the American Legion. If I might introduce Deputy Department Commander Stanley Garland, past National Vice Commander Doc Simon, past National Executive Committee woman Barbara Bouchard, Department Service Officer Milt Willis, Charlie LePage, and we have auxiliary members as well, Eastern Division National Vice President Rainey Gray, Department President Candy Hoosman, Department Secretary Debbie LePage, past Department President Pam Norton, past Department President Elaine McKenzie. And I want to thank all of them for the great work they do in Vermont. Now, let me say a word about the VA. I'm going to cover some territory today. There are issues we just don't have the time to go into, but I want to focus on some of the major issues. But before I go there, I want to say this. Everybody knows, like every other governmental agency, like every corporation, the VA has its problems, and we're going to talk about those problems. But also, I think we all know, and I can tell you this from firsthand experience, speaking to hundreds and hundreds of veterans in the state of Vermont, the VA does a lot of stuff and does it very well. And one of the reasons that the VA does things well is because of the extraordinarily dedicated staff that they have working with them in hospitals and clinics all over this country. Some 300,000 plus employees of the VA, many of them veterans, who when they do their work, they don't do it as a job. They do it as someone taking care of a brother and a sister, and we see the results of their very fine work and appreciate it very, very much. Now, in the midst of a healthcare system, which, as all of you know, has enormous problems. We got 50 million people who have no health insurance. We got millions more who are underinsured. We have millions more who can't afford co-payments and deductibles. We got a lot of problems. And we end up spending twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other nation. And our outcomes are not necessarily better. But in the midst of all that, we should understand that the VA healthcare system currently boasts the highest patient satisfaction rate of any healthcare system in America. That's not bad. New benefits. When we talk about what's going on in the VA, we should appreciate that new benefits have been extended to veterans, especially those who were exposed to Agent Orange while serving in the Vietnam era. Now, we all know, when I was in the House, I spent more hearings, more hours than I would like to remember, dealing with Agent Orange and what it did to the men and women who were exposed to that. So I'm glad that in recent years we have made some progress. It's not a question of service organizations and veterans having to sue the United States government. It's a question of the government finally doing the right thing in that area. Secretary Shinseki, as again, all of you know, one of the tragedies in this country, and I know a past speaker mentioned it, is homelessness in general and homelessness among veterans. We do not want to see one veteran in this country living out on the streets. Secretary Shinseki had an ambitious goal of eliminating veterans' homelessness by 2015, and we are making progress in that area. Still got a long way to go, but we have made significant progress. Furthermore, as everybody here knows, the world is changing. Women are becoming a more and more active part of the U.S. military, and the VA has and must provide the health care and other unique benefits that women need. We're beginning to make some progress in that area as well. If you look, and I speak to you as the chairman of another subcommittee on health care, it deals with primary health care. One of the reasons, one of the major problems in our health care system today is that tens of millions of Americans do not have access to primary health care. They don't know where to go to find the doctor when they get sick. They end up getting sicker, and they end up in the emergency room or in the hospital. You know what? VA does a good job. We can do better, and we are going to do better, in providing primary health care through the CBOC program, which exists all over this country. And that means that what the VA has done over the years is say that if you need a checkup, you need primary health care, you don't have to travel 100 miles to a VA medical center. You can go to a clinic in your community. That makes life easier for the veteran. It makes a more cost-effective health care system. We want to build on that. And also, I think what is underappreciated is the role that vet centers play in providing quality service to veterans. So all over America now, you have veterans walking in to vet centers. They're walking in with their wives, with their families, getting the counseling that they need, and an informal, supportive environment. I think we should support that and, in fact, expand what the work that the vet centers are doing. VA continues to serve as an indispensable sponsor of medical research. into the health issues facing veterans, and I think, as you all know, although you're not dying to get into this, the National Cemetery Administration continues to receive unprecedented approval rating from family members. But having said that, and having acknowledged that the VA does many things that are right, everybody knows that the VA has many problems which we together have got to address. Let me start on what I think is perhaps something that is the top of my agenda, and I think the American Legion and the other service organizations as well, and that is the claims backlog. Now, in talking about the claims backlog, I think you understand that many others don't. There is good news and bad news. Now, the good news is that for the last 3 years, the VA has processed more than 1 million claims a year, including more than 250,000 claims for Agent Orange exposure. Now, if I had come before you 10 years ago and I said, guess what? The VA has processed 1 million claims, you would have stood up and given me a standing ovation. Because 10 years ago, the number of claims being processed was far, far lower. So when people say, why can't the VA process claims? What's the matter? The answer is they are processing a whole lot of claims. The problem is that more claims are coming in. This year, as I understand it, there will be about 1.2 million claims coming in and about 1 million being processed, so you're adding 200,000 to the backlog. VA efforts have been outpaced, as I mentioned, by new claim filings in each of the last 3 years, further compounding the backlog as a result. And here's an interesting point. I think the average American would say, well, that's probably because of Afghanistan and Iraq. That's where the new claims are coming in. Guess what? Most of the new claims are being filed by older veterans of previous conflicts. Still, be that as it may, whatever the reason is, I remain deeply troubled by the growth and the persistence of the claims backlog. As we wind down our commitments overseas, we must redouble our commitments to those coming home. VA's claim workload will only increase in coming years, and an already overwhelmed, broken claim system is no way to welcome those heroes back home. This is wrong, plain and simple, and as chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, I refuse to accept the status quo. We will work with you, we will work with the VA to make sure that that system is significantly improved. The Veterans Benefit Management System is certainly a step in the right direction. An electronic and paperless claims process is essential to eliminating the backlog and delivering timely, accurate results to veterans. However, progress in developing and implementing the VBMS has been mixed. VA has a daunting task in bringing its workforce up to speed on the system and eliminating some of VBMS's technical issues. Getting claims processing right is critical on multiple fronts, none more so than ensuring that the millions of veterans who depend on VA receive the assistance that they need. A broken claim system not only jeopardizes the welfare of those veterans receiving benefits, but discourages those looking for help from reaching out in the first place. There's no question about it. If somebody says, well, I filed a claim and it's taken me 2 years to get it adjudicated, and you're talking to somebody else, you know what that somebody else is going to say? I'm not going to go through the process. I'm not going to go through the bureaucracy. It's not worth it. And that's wrong. That is wrong. So we have got to expedite the process. People have a right to know whether their claims are going to be dealt with, how the claims are going to be dealt with in a timely manner. And on that, let me touch on another issue related to that, and that is the relationship between the Department of Defense and the VA. For many, many years, there has been this mentality, which is kind of crazy to my mind, that says when you're in the military, here you are. And when you're a veteran, here you are. Well, you know what? You are one human being. One human being. And there has to be a coming together of the DOD and the VA in terms of medical records and other issues as well. And the truth is, with modern technology, we can do that. We need one electronic system to follow that human being from the day he or she enlists to the day he or she leaves this earth, and we can do that. Now, another issue that I know is on your mind, and it is a tragedy, and that is the issue of mental health and the issue of suicide. It's not an issue that anyone feels comfortable talking about, because many of us have known people who have been in that situation, and families in that situation. It is a tragedy that so many veterans are taking their own lives. I don't know that anyone knows exactly why this is, but I think what we can all agree is that war has more of an impact on people's lives than perhaps we have known in the past. I remember, actually, Steve Robertson was with me in Vermont 15 years or so ago, and we had a meeting with veterans, different ages, different wars, different generations. I'll never forget it. We sat around a circle, 20, 25 guys and wives, and a woman stands up and says, "My husband still has nightmares of World War II. Still has nightmares, wakes up in the night." And in fact, there was an instance where a man almost strangled his wife in bed because he thought somebody was attacking him. It doesn't go away. And if we don't provide the proper support, the proper love, the proper community, people, especially in this difficult economy, people are reaching the age of 55, 60, they're losing their jobs, can't find another job, under financial duress, not getting along with their wives. And that is the climate in which suicide can take place. So we have got a lot of work to do in that area. I think the VA understands the issue. It's not an easy issue, but we have got to understand that a lot of people who put their lives on the line defending our country, people who suffered, people when they came home didn't know how to express that suffering. They're hurting today, and we must do everything that we can to reach out to them and to help them. And then, not unrelated, are the issues from the recent wars of PTSD and TBI. Horrendous situation, horrendous. I met recently with the folks who are working on PTSD. They think they have some approaches which are helping some veterans. In some instances, though, the problem is that veterans, for a variety of reasons, choose not to go through the therapy. So how we deal with that issue is a tough one. I'll tell you one thing that we did, which I'm proud of in the state of Vermont, and it became a model for other states, and I hope it will become a national model. I come from a rural state, and we sent a lot of soldiers off to Iraq and to Afghanistan as well. And when they come home, and you go back to a small town, you don't get the support that you need. So what we did is put together an outreach program made up of veterans who literally knocked on doors all over the state, sat down, talked to the family, got a sense of how things were going, and did their best to make sure that that veteran knew of the services that were available to him or to her. And I think we've got to continue that effort. Major problem is isolation, leaving people out there alone and not bringing them into a system. There's another issue that I want to talk about, and I'll tell you a story and how I got into this issue. Maybe 15 years ago, when I was in the House, we had meetings all over the state of Vermont with veterans. And what I wanted to know, and the reason I did those meetings, which were very well attended, I simply wanted to know how veterans in the state of Vermont, how much they knew about the benefits to which they were entitled. For example, as all of you know, among many, many other things, the Veterans Administration has a very strong prescription drug program. And if you're in the VA, let's say you have cancer or heart disease, and you're paying a lot of money for your drugs, if you are in the VA system, you can keep your private doctor, but also take advantage of the low-cost prescription drugs. Well, it turned out that, among many other things, many Vermont veterans did not know that, and we were successful in bringing a lot of veterans into the VA system. My guess is that there are millions of veterans out there who do not know what they are entitled to, both in terms of health care and other benefits. And our job, not everybody wants to come into the VA, and that's their right, but our job is certainly to make sure that every American who is eligible for benefits at least knows what he or she is entitled to. In talking with veterans also, I think there is concerns about the Transition Assistance Program, which is a sensible program, and it has been a primary method of disseminating information about eligibility for quite some time. And I'm pleased that TAP has been revamped within the last year and has been made mandatory. So that is an important step forward in making sure that when people leave service, they know the health care, employment opportunities that are available to them. When we talk about issues facing veterans, a major issue out there remains employment. In America today, some of you know this, some of you don't, real unemployment is not 7.8%. If you include those people who have given up looking for work, those people who are working 20 hours a week when they want to work 40 hours a week, real unemployment, counting all that, is close to 14%. Close to 14%. So now you have men and women coming home from Iraq, coming home from Afghanistan. They gave up their jobs, and they're coming back, and you got 14% unemployment, and it is very difficult for them to find jobs. Unemployment among the veterans community is extremely high. That is an issue that we must target, because if a returning veteran is unemployed, that just compounds every other problem that you have. If you're not working, if you're not earning an income, it impacts your sense of self-worth, it'll impact your marriage, your relationship to your kids, your mental health, and everything else. So making sure that every veteran in this country who wants to work is able to get a decent paying job is something that we have got to focus on. Now let me conclude, as the gentleman who introduced me mentioned, I am the longest serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. That means, so my views are different than my Republican friends and my Democratic friends. I caucus with the Democrats, but my views are a little bit different. And here's an issue that has recently surfaced, and I want to thank you and the American Legion and the other service organizations for their help on. How many of you have ever heard of a term called chained CPI? Raise your hand if you heard of that. No, okay. This is the difference between what goes on inside the Beltway and the real world. Here's the speech. Here's the speech that you're going to hear tonight when you turn on the television. This country has a $16 trillion national debt. It does. Got an $850 billion deficit. It does. Therefore, we need, quote unquote, entitlement reform. Entitlement reform. And we need a chained CPI to reconfigure how Social Security beneficiaries and veterans get the benefits that they are entitled to. Now that's the speech. Let me translate that into English. They're going to cut Social Security and they're going to cut veterans' benefits. That's what the chained CPI is. In my view, you can make, and many economists do make, a strong case that the way we determine Social Security and veterans' benefits in terms of COLAs is inadequate because it doesn't give full scope to health care and prescription drug costs that many older people have. But there is another line of thinking that says we have been too generous to disabled veterans, too generous. We have been too generous to senior citizens, and we have to change the way that we figure COLAs. I was very pleased last month to join with the American Legion, the other service organizations, disability groups, trade unionists, women's groups, people from all across the political spectrum in saying we will not balance the budget on the backs of disabled veterans. The deficit is a serious problem. But when you have large corporations stashing their money in the Cayman Islands and in Bermuda in order to avoid paying taxes to the United States government, when you bail out banks who are moving our jobs to China and other countries, maybe it's about time they start paying their fair share of taxes and not cut benefits for disabled veterans. So, my friends, let me conclude by once again thanking you as individuals, as an organization, it's the largest veterans organization in America, for all that you do. I don't have to tell anybody in this room that above and beyond veterans issues, our country faces very, very serious problems. But I believe that if we work together, if we have the courage to stand up and fight for what's right, we will prevail, and we will make this country the nation that we all know it must be. Thank you again for all that you have done.